Hi, my name's Trev Hutchings and this is the Zoom U-22. If you use software like Ableton Live Lite, then you're probably going to need a digital audio interface. So what exactly is a digital audio interface? Basically, it's an external sound card that converts analog input, such as microphones and guitars, into a digital source that can be put into a computer. It also takes the digital sound from a computer and converts it to an analog source that can be used with an amp and speakers. So what is in the box? Well, firstly, in the box we've got the digital audio interface itself, a USB cable, various pieces of paper including a very basic manual, and an Ableton Live Lite license number. On the front of the Zoom U-22 we have a microphone input, which is also cunningly a guitar input as well. To the side of it here we've got a line input, which is a stereo 3.5mm line input for things like an MP3 player. But if you do use the line input, you can't use the mic input as well, or the guitar input, so it's one or the other when you come to recording or putting music through. To the side of this we've got a headphone socket. On this side we have got a battery switch here, which selects between USB as the power source, or you can use, on the back here we've got a battery box that takes two AA batteries, and if you select the battery selection here for the AA's, you can use it powered by batteries rather than USB, and you would do that if you were going to use this with an iPad, because you can actually use this with an iPad. You don't have to use the batteries. On the back there's a 5V USB socket here as well, so you can use a power adapter. On the side here next to the, well, further down than the battery selector, we've got next here we've got a selector here for 48 volts. That is for phantom power. So if you've got a condenser microphone that needs phantom power, you can switch that on, and there's a little light on the top that will come on to tell you or warn you that you've got phantom power on. I say warn you because you want to make sure it's off if you're going to plug a dynamic microphone into the front. Next to that we have a direct monitoring switch, straightforward on-off switch. What that does is means that when, for instance, if you plug a microphone into the front here and you're singing into the unit while you're recording, you can turn the direct monitor on, and that will allow you to hear your vocals through the headphone socket, and your vocals will be mixed with whatever sound you've got playing from your laptop. On the top we've got a couple of dials here. The bottom dial is for input, so that's a gain dial, 0 to 10, and that allows you to adjust the level of the volume of the input. Next to that is another light. This is a clip signal light that will go green when there's a signal, so when you're singing in a microphone, when it's receiving your vocals, the light will go green. And if it's too loud, if you've turned the gain up too much and your volume's coming through too loud, the red light will come on. The green light will turn red to show that it's clipping, and what that means is it's trying to reduce the volume of what's going in, and that you don't want, because that usually, from a digital point of view, makes some horrible noises that are very difficult to remove once recorded. The other dial is a larger dial, and that is for the output. That simply allows you to change the level of output. There is also a power button on the front here, which when you plug this into the USB, you'll know that it's up and running because the power light will come on, or if you've turned it to batteries, if the batteries are working, if there's enough power in them, the red light will come on as well. On the back we've got, as I've said, a USB power connector there. Next to that you've got the USB socket for your USB cable. That's where you plug your USB cable into, and then the other end into your computer. And then next to that we've got the outputs. Now the outputs on this are only what we call phono outputs, as they're the only two on here. Although you could in theory take an output from the headphone socket, I wouldn't recommend that. You really need to stick to the two phono ones on the out there. And that basically is all the controls of the unit itself. So what is the unit like to actually use? Well, if you're connecting it to an Apple Mac, it's really simple. You just literally plug in the USB cable into the back of it and away you go. If you're using Windows, you're going to need to download the driver for it, and it doesn't come in the box, which is a bit of a pain, but the manual does tell you what is the website address to get the driver from. If you haven't already got a digital audio interface, so you've been using Ableton Live Lite with the built-in sound card that's in your computer or laptop, you'll probably have noticed a bit of lag. My particular laptop, well, that gives me back a reading of 92.9 milliseconds latency when I'm using the internal sound card, which is pretty bad. Once I plug in the Zoom U-22 and I set the computer up to use the Zoom rather than the internal sound card, I actually get just under 8.3 milliseconds, which is seriously quicker. In fact, that is faster than any other digital audio interface that I've ever used. So from that respect, it's a pretty good piece of kit. It's at the budget end of the range of the market, but the sound card in it I think is just as good as anything else that you're likely to use for monitoring. And if you're using this live, I would say that the sound quality coming out of this is perfectly capable of being used live. The microphone input on the front, I've used that. If you've seen my video of 6 more awesome tricks with the Vortex Wireless 2, there's a bit in there where I've used a microphone and used the Vortex to change the sound effects on the microphone. That microphone was plugged into this Zoom U-22, so yes, I would say the sound quality coming out being recorded through this is perfectly fine. The only downside that I've found with using Ableton Live Lite, for some strange reason I do need to put the master volume on Live Lite down by 1 dB. Otherwise, when I put the sound out through this Zoom, I get some horrible distortion noises and crackles and other kinds of things. Do I think it's worth it? I certainly think that if you've already got a digital audio interface that you're using for home or live, and you want a spare in your bag just in case that one goes missing or it breaks down, then I think this is a very good budget option as a spare digital audio interface. Having said that, I would be quite happy to use this as my #1 digital audio interface around the home and in the studio and actually live. Possibly the only reasons you wouldn't want an interface of this type is simply because there are only at most 2 inputs at the front, and if you're trying to record a whole band live, well, that's not going to cut it. And if you're someone who likes to sing and play the guitar at the same time, or in my case sing and play the keytar at the same time, you just don't have enough ports to do that. But for me, I played the guitar through the computer. The microphone is set up separately. The only thing I'm using this for is to get the sound of the synthesized keyboards from the computer to my PA system, and this in that case this Zoom U-22 does the job perfectly. So in summary, yes, is it worth buying? Yes, it is worth buying for those reasons. If you're into the technical stuff, here's some of the specifications. The frequency characteristics at 44.1 kHz is 20 Hz to 20 kHz. The sampling frequencies are 96 kHz, 88.2 kHz, 48 kHz and 44.1 kHz. The bit depth is 24 bits. The interface is USB 2. Weight really isn't something to worry about with something like this, but if you're really bothered by it, it's 151 grams. If you've enjoyed this video, do give us the thumbs up and click on that subscribe button. Cheers.